Hello guys, so we're going to go ahead and continue with the CASTT poetry analysis strategy that we practiced on Tuesday. We read through the poem The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, and the first thing that we did was paraphrase each stanza, and we looked only for the literal meaning. So real quick, before we continue here, I want you to remind yourselves what connotation versus denotation means. All right, good. So denotation, remember, is the dictionary definition. That's the literal meaning. And what we're looking at here is literally a man or a narrator who is standing at a crossroads, looking down each path, deciding which road he should take. And ultimately, at the end, remind yourselves there that he decides to take the one that seems a little more grassy and wants wear, and he says that that has made all the difference in his life. But we must keep in mind that before he says that, he has a sigh, which you see here. And we're going to cover this here. So what we're going to do now is, today, what I want you guys to focus on, which is the next part of your CASTT poetry analysis strategy, and that is the connotation of this poem. And one of the things I want you to keep in mind here is that Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken, is really not about the literal at all. It's more about the connotation of these words or some of the phrases and the things that he is talking about in this poem. And we mentioned a little bit about this on Tuesday, but this poem is really more about life, right? And the choices that you're going to have to make. So we talked about your prediction. I want you to remind yourself of your prediction here. And we went through each stanza and we paraphrased the literal interpretation of what was happening. And so we're going to go through this and do a second reading, and what we're going to look for is specifically the connotation of words and phrases and lines and what they mean. So make sure you have your Springboard book opened up to activity 1.3. You should be on the poem The Road Not Taken, which is right here. You see the picture here, and follow along with me. So I'm going to reread each stanza again, and we're gonna point out, and I want you to use your highlighter here. So remember, on Springboard, when you highlight anything, okay, you should have a menu that lights up like this, and you could put a sticky note and do notes, and you can also highlight things. And so we're going to highlight certain lines and phrases, and I want you to do the same exact thing with me as we read through the poem. So here we go. Stanza number 1. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So when we're looking at this very first line here, what do you think is the connotation behind this word roads? And when he says 2 roads diverged, 2 roads diverged, I want you to highlight that right now. What do you think, other than the literal meaning? This would be this picture right here would be literal. He would be either traveling down this path or literally physically traveling down this path. But let's assume that Robert Frost is not even really talking about walking or hiking at all. What could this phrase right here mean in your life? 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood. 2 roads. So what I want you to do right now is take that phrase and I want you to put it right here in your connotation box. Okay. 2 roads diverged. What do you think is the meaning behind this phrase, 2 roads diverged? The connotative meaning. What's the underlying meaning that Robert Frost is hoping that you get? Okay, so let's continue here. He says, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. What do you think he means by this idea here where he says he's sorry he could not travel both and be one traveler? Okay, what do you think he means by this phrase right here? So what I want you to do is I want you to copy and paste this phrase here. I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to put it right in here. Let's see if I can do this. And you can leave the highlights in there, I don't care. That's fine. Or if you wanted to take them off, you could. But just tell me, what do you think he means by that? Why is he sorry that he can't go down both? What does that mean as far as your life or the choices that you have to make in your life? Why is it sad that he can't do both? So what's the connotation there? Let's go to the second stanza here. He says, "Then I took or saw the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same." I want you to highlight this word right here. Okay. What is the connotation of the word fair, as Robert Frost is using it here? So ask yourselves, what does he mean by that this second path that he's looking at is just as fair? We talked a little bit about this in class. What's the connotation of the word fair? How many different meanings does it have? Or how can it be used differently? And what does he mean? All right, let's go to the third stanza here. And remember, you can pause. If I'm going too fast, you have the video in front of you, so you can pause it at any time. So third stanza. "And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I marked the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back." What does he mean by this phrase right here? I marked the first for another day. What does it mean to mark something? If he's saying I'm going to mark it for another day. So what I want you to do is I want you to just highlight. You don't need to highlight this whole thing. I just want you to talk about the word marked. What is the connotation of the word marked as he's using it here in this passage? So what is he doing with this second or this first path that he looks down? What does he say he's going to do? So then he says, "Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back." Okay, this phrase right here has a lot of connotation in it in different respects. What does it mean to come back? What does he mean by here if he says, "I doubted if I should ever come back to this original fork in the road, or this original first path that I'm saved, or that I have saved for another day"? So I want you to do this one as well. Come back is the phrase that I want you to put down here. What do you think he means by that? He says, "I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." So the first thing I want you to focus on is this first line here. What is he feeling? And this will also relate to your tone when we get to the T part. And that is, what is he feeling if he has a sigh? What's the connotation of a sigh for the most part? The way we use it in this culture, right? The way we use it in the English language. Typically, a sigh means what? What's the connotation there? See if you can answer that. He says then, down here at the bottom, "I took the one less traveled by." What does he mean by this? Right? Does he physically, literally mean that not a lot of people have gone down or walked down that path? Or what is he saying about the choice that he made? What is he really saying? What's the connotation behind this phrase, less traveled by? And that has made all the difference. So I'm not going to make you do this one last, but I want you to think about this because this is related to part of the theme, and that is, what does he mean by this? Okay, does he mean that it was a positive thing that he chose that path, or a negative thing? So think about that connotation there. And that has made all the difference, that I chose that path. Does that mean something good, something positive? Did he make the right choice or not? Okay, so that's your connotation section. You need to make sure you have that part done. I want a definition or an explanation of each one of these phrases that you copied and pasted, or that you copied over and put into your connotation section here. Okay, do your best on that. And let's switch to attitude or tone. Now, one of the problems, or one of the difficulties that students often have with attitude or tone is that you don't have a lot of words in your vocabulary for attitude or tone, or you can't think of them right off the top of your head. But guess what? You have a computer and you have internet access. So all I did was search. Okay? All I did was search up here at the top of my screen, author's tone or attitude word list, and I came up with this gigantic list of words to describe the author's tone or attitude. Now don't forget that tone means your attitude, right? So when your mom says to you, "I don't like your tone," right? That means she doesn't like your attitude. So what do you think is Robert Frost's attitude? I want you to go through this list of tone words, okay, and you can look it up at 155 words to describe an author's tone. There's some great words in here with the definitions, so you can look through these, right? What is his tone here? Okay, I'll give you some pointers here. Is his tone going to be aggressive? Is he forceful or argumentative? No, not really. Is his tone absurd? Is this ridiculous, silly? No. Okay, it's definitely not. So look through this list and see if you can find a good couple of words here to describe his tone in this passage. Then what I want you to do is go back to here, and what are some of the things, or what are some of the phrases that we already pointed out that could possibly lead you, okay, or ones that we haven't copied down would lead you to describe his tone. Like, I'll give you a hint. Sigh. The word sigh specifically reveals the narrator's tone here, or how he's feeling. This part right here, right, when he talks about that this one choice that he made has made all the difference in his life. What would that choice be? What about this word right here, sorry? Does that word, sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler, does that, right, have a tone or an attitude to it? So think about that. Those are some tips there for you guys to use when you're doing this attitude and tone part. This thing right here, this concept, attitude and tone, is something you're going to be reminded of over and over and over again, not only in my class, but also on tests like the AIR test or the SAT. Okay, any of those significant tests that you're going to have to take are going to, okay, ask you a lot of questions about attitude and tone. So you want to definitely pay attention to that. Now let's go to shifts. Second to last word or letter in our TP-CASTT strategy. Are there any major shifts, like keywords or time changes or anything like that, that happen in this poem? Is the whole poem separated in half? Okay, not really. We have stanzas, 4 stanzas, but it's not really broken up into anything different. But do we have a time change? Okay, and you may have noticed as you go down through the poem that when you get to the last stanza, he has this line right here, somewhere ages and ages hence. I want you to copy this, highlight it. Somewhere ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Okay. What is he? What's happening with the time there? And that's something that I want you to point out here. What's happening with the time? And you can even suggest what's happening with the mood here, especially with the sigh you have there. This right here is his final answer. This is his final reflection on the choice that he made. So this final and last paragraph, there's somewhat of a shift here. It's not a huge shift, but there's definitely somewhat of a turning point. Now you'll notice that that this is the last paragraph, and you know, if you know anything about stories or poems, the last paragraph or the last page usually has the big twist, right? Or usually has the conclusive moment in it. And there's usually that shift to the very end or the final reveal. So always pay attention to that. I don't see any major shifts in the middle of this poem. It's usually at the end. There may be a shift at the beginning somewhere, but there really isn't a huge shift. And then, okay, as you continue that, you get down to title. You want to review the title again. So this time, if you go back, look at your prediction. In your prediction, right, did you say or suggest that the title of this poem, The Road Not Taken, is a literal interpretation, or did you give a figurative, okay, interpretation or connotative interpretation? Did you think that maybe he was saying the choices that he didn't make, or the choices that he couldn't take, right, or the path in life that he couldn't take? If that is something that you predicted, okay, then this second examination of the title, you were right on. And that's exactly what you will put here. Because when you re-examine this title and you look at The Road Not Taken again, what you're going to see here is that the title actually means something much deeper. And it's more related to the choices that you make in your life, okay, or the choices that you don't get to make in your life that Robert Frost is talking about, and not these literal roads or dirt roads or rocky roads or whatever it is. Theme. So make sure you fill that in. Theme. Remember what theme is. Remind yourself again what a theme is. And so the directions here briefly state in your own words what the poem is about. What's the main message? Just like in The Scarlet Ibis, her main message was that pride is a wonderful, terrible thing. A seed that bears two vines, life and death, right? So what do you think is Robert Frost's overall theme here about life and the choices that you will have to make? The road not taken, right? Especially you want to pay attention to this last stanza here, okay? Or actually the last couple lines of the third stanza and the last stanza itself, right? So here's a couple things I want you to think about when you think about theme here. This man has two choices to make. When you're faced with a choice, in any choice in life, there's almost always two choices. At least two choices. There might be multiple. There might be even more than that. But when you make a choice and you decide to go down one choice and not the other, or go down one path, right, there is a certain sadness that Robert Frost is talking about here, that he could not travel both. Because just like a little child who wants everything in life, we, even as adults, or as you guys are getting there, right, you're getting older, there is a certain sadness that you can't do everything, that you can't lead every possible scenario or every possible life that you want, that ultimately you have to pick a path, and that path is going to take you in a very unique, okay, or take you down a very unique experience, but you don't get to experience everything, or everything that everybody else is experiencing, right? You may want to, but you'll find that there are certain choices that you're going to have to make. And sometimes, like for example, where he says, I doubted if I should ever come back. Sometimes you make a choice and you want to save the other one for another day, or maybe you want to put that one on reserve and come back to it. But you realize you've gone so far down the rabbit hole, or so far down this path, that there's no way you can go back to the beginning again, or there's no way you can go back to this other choice because it's not there anymore, right? And so, right, you have to pick this unique and individual path. That path is yours, and it could go in any which way or whatnot, and those are all dependent on your choices that you make in life. But like this concept here, there's a lot of first things in your life that you cannot do over again, right? And that's life, right? And as you get older, there are certain things that you can't do that you could do when you were younger. And so time plays a factor. Your experiences, your memories play a factor. Your memories don't disappear. So things like that will always come into play. And so he says, I shall be telling you with a sigh, right? And if you take that as he's going to be telling you this as with somewhat of a bit of sadness, he says, I took the one less traveled by, or the path less traveled by, maybe the path that fewer people take or fewer people decide to take, and that has made all the difference in his life. But if it's been the best decision in his life, you have to ask yourself, then why is he sighing? Why is there a sadness about it? And so I think that's definitely one of the things that Frost is leaving you with, and allowing you to really think when it comes to the theme and what his overall message is here. So for the theme, I want you to go ahead and put down what you think the overall message or the overall idea here is about choices, or the choices that you have to make in life. What is he really saying? So describe it as best you can. You don't have to put it in one sentence. You can put it in multiple sentences if you want. Okay. So once you finish that, go ahead and turn that in, guys. Make sure this is turned into Google Classroom, because I'm going to grade this. And then what I want you to do is go back to the Google Classroom posts for today, and I want you to pull up that connotation worksheet, review the definitions of connotation and denotation, and then I want you to look at those words that I put on the list, and I want you to come up with the different connotative meanings that word could have. Right? What are the different definitions or meanings that word could possibly have? And you'll notice one of the words I put on there is fair, from the poem, but there's some other ones on there. If you need to, you can look them up online, right? That's always a resource. But make sure you're being respectful with the sub, and make sure you get your work done. All right? I'll see you guys later. Remember, I'm still over at, I'll be over at Lakeview. So if there are any questions or anything, you can email me or whatnot, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I'll be back at 6th period. All right? We'll see you guys.